we I want to introduce. Thank you everybody for being here. I'm Bonnie Halper. I write the weekly Startup One Stop newsletter. I'll put the link in the chat. And every 2 weeks, we host an online breakfast with one investor and a self-selecting group of entrepreneurs so that everyone has a chance to participate. And we want to thank Work2 for hosting us. Christine, you want to tell us about Work2, what you all do?
Yes. Hi, my name is Christine. I'm Director of Customer Success with Work2. Work2 partners with hotels and restaurants across the nation to provide remote workers with safe working spaces. As a member, you have access to unlimited seat bookings and shared spaces and access to affordable hourly meeting room rentals. We have individual memberships for an affordable monthly fee or a variety of options for companies based on their employee count.
Oh, thank you. And Caitlin is here with us this week from Republic. So Caitlin, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in Republic, and then we'll have people introduce themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Caitlin Szikszai. I'm a senior investment team associate at Republic. I've been at the company for about 2 years, and previously I worked at a growth fund before that. I formally studied international business in college, but at Republic, we are a investment platform that allows for accredited and non-accredited investors to invest across private companies through pre-seed all the way up to Series B plus. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So we always have people introduce themselves, and then it's all Q&A. So who wants to start out? Zarin, you're right. Well, Joseph is from Work2. I didn't know if you wanted to, if you were working on something else as well, Joseph, and if you want to introduce yourself.
I'll just say a quick hello. Joseph Katz. I'm run marketing for Work2. Glad to be here. Thanks everyone for joining, and enjoy.
Oh, thank you. So Zarin.
So I'm joining from Zurich. I have private banking background, and currently I work with startups for capital raise and business development. One is in data analytics and looks at all the stocks on S&P 500 and top cryptocurrencies. So we're reaching out to different exchange platforms to present ourselves. And the other is an e-commerce platform that combines video conferencing and payment processing and data capture.
And Ariel. Oh,
hi everyone. I'm in New York, Long Island specifically. The sun just came out, Bonnie, so that's why you can see it. So that's good. It really was pouring today. So our firm is Lions Financial, and we help growing businesses as they're raising money with employee benefits, retention strategies, exit planning, mergers and acquisition advisory work, risk management, all that kind of good stuff.
Oh, thank you. Ian.
Sorry.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Ian Garnays in Toronto, and I am the Canadian sales and marketing rep for the Virtual Film School, which is based in Hollywood and London. And we train people on how to make short videos, on how to monetize those videos.
Oh, thank you. Tommy. Oh, you're muted, Tommy. And sometimes she's multitasking. We'll go back to her. Trip.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Trip Braden. I'm calling in from Columbus, Ohio today. I have no voice, so you won't hear me a lot. I do a lot of work in advanced sales and operations and scaling companies. So once they've had their first couple sales, figure out what they need to do to go to the next level. So that's what I do.
Squeaky chair. So I guess, Tommy, are you able to chat or to introduce yourself right now? Like I said, she's always multitasking. So, question.
Can I ask? Okay, I just want to ask. Chip is increasing sales. Are you focused on U.S. markets, or is it a more global approach?
Most of my work is in North America today. I've got a couple new clients that are in Europe that are going to be opening up some things in partnerships. So we'll be doing some more in Europe as well.
Okay, interesting.
You were happy for synergies among people too. So anybody have questions?
Well, I would like to hear more about Republic platform.
Yeah, me too.
You can join, like, you talked about accredited and non-accredited. Like, do you get like these retail clients, or to add to like people like small investors, like you know, angel investors, like how it all works a little bit?
Yeah, of course, I would love to dive into that. I think that Republic, you know, as a company is quite broad. You know, we do have a few different arms, and so I'll kind of go over those all briefly and then can dive into specifically how we allow for investors to invest and then also for founders to fundraise. So, you know, I think as a base point, you know, we do have a few different verticals when it comes to Republic. We have our investment platform, you know, that does a lot of those transactions, but, you know, also at the same time, we do have Republic Capital, which is a private rolling fund that usually invests into later stage companies and does do some pretty large allocations with our high net worth clients. We also have Republic Advisory Services, you know, also known as Republic Crypto. And so oftentimes they'll work with companies on tokenization projects and then also fundraises, token fundraises as well. So, you know, I think specifically on my end, I work on the retail platform. And, you know, that's where we have this area where funders can come on, you know, display their company, and then investors can invest. We are able to execute these types of fundraisers through a few different security exemptions. So I would say three of the main focuses are Reg D, Reg CF, and then also Reg A fundraisers. So Reg D, as you know, is private accredited only. Reg CF is a security exemption that was actually put through by the SEC in 2016. And that's really what allows for these non-accredited investors to be able to invest in the private companies. So currently, you know, the security exemption allows for companies to raise up to $5 million each year, and they have to go through a certified platform to do so. So Republic is one of those platforms that can execute these types of fundraisers. And then also, you know, kind of going off of that, Reg A is what we like to refer to, or Reg CF on steroids. So you can raise 75 million plus, again, from accredited and non-accredited investors through specified platforms. I would say, though, for the most part, we're really well known for our Reg CF raises, just because it allows for companies to bring in, you know, a very diverse group of investors. You know, I think that a lot of companies like to come towards Reg CF because it brings about a lot of visibility, and then it allows for companies to really engage with their community and maybe even their customer base in a different way. You know, personally on our end, we've built up our investor base over time, and we have about 1.5 million members on our platform. So obviously, you know, if you're being displayed on the platform as a company, there's a ton of visibility and exploration and discovery that's going on. So we're hoping that you know, not only are companies able to engage their community and, you know, take them a step further by allowing them to have a financial incentive in their company and really make them an evangelist, you know, also have them be discoverable in front of our investor base. And we've seen some pretty amazing and fruitious relationships come about from being able to like just engage with your community in this way. So, you know, the way I like to say it is you get to double down on your community and then really expand your community as well, because a lot of investors from our network will be coming into these types of fundraisers.
And if a company wanted to be part of your like platform, like what is the process? Like, is there due diligence, like how they get in touch with you, or what happens next?
Yeah, so we do have a few different ways that we get connected to companies. I think that when you're singling out Republic within the space of regulation, crowdfunding, Reg CF, you know, I would say that we are a pretty curated platform. So we take a lot of pride in our diligence process and our curation that we have. You know, I think largely we want to create a lot of trust with our investors, and we want to make sure that, you know, our companies that are on the platform are the best. And so when a company does come on, they're displayed with other companies of quality. So, you know, companies can apply through our website, republic.com/apply. And then also at the same time too, we have a lot of amazing partners within our network. We have a venture partner program that does make a lot of deal referrals. You know, past issuers are always referring companies as well. And then companies can always get in contact with me. But I think generally, you know, we do screen for companies. I think that a few different buckets that we consider. You know, I think first is traction. You know, oftentimes we are looking for companies that are in market and do have a little bit of traction, just because it's easier to translate the opportunity to our investors. It's easier for them to understand valuation, projections, things like that. But also at the same time, we do look for VC-backed companies and then also companies with a really amazing executive team. If someone has deep in-depth knowledge in a vertical, oftentimes that can trump, if maybe a company hasn't gone to market yet. And additionally, if a company has maybe been funded by, a very well-known VC firm, that can also trump the traction part. I think that we're really looking for different signals that our investors will take onto very well, because I think that can lead to a lot of successful momentum that we're able to bring in from our network. And then, just generally, of course, we're always checking for the financial health of a company, making sure that they're having enough runway to sustain themselves throughout a campaign and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess just generally would love, oh, pardon, go ahead, Bonnie.
Oh, I was just wondering if you have a talent team, a talent search team that looks at, that goes out looking for companies as well.
Yeah, so I would say that's largely part of what the investment team and new business team does. It's interesting because it is a two-sided funnel. We have a lot of companies that come towards us as Republic's name and brand becomes bigger. But at the same time too, we have members of our team who does outreach as well. I would say that we're pretty well connected within accelerator networks, and then also just within different VC networks as well. So I think, personally through my work, I've often worked pretty closely with Techstars companies, XRC Labs companies, and kind of looking through their accelerated portfolios and the different cohorts that they have come through, kind of identifying the next up and coming companies that are looking to fundraise and kind of grow quickly from there.
Oh, I had to miss the XRC demo day. Were you there?
I actually wasn't in person, but we definitely took a look at all the companies.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
So, anybody else have next question? People always have questions.
What is the minimum to invest, for example, for investors? Like minimum, maximum, or how is that?
Yeah, so the thing about Reg CF campaigns and these types of crowdfunding campaigns is that it's all very, very customizable. If you're going out through Reg CF, you can set your own minimum investment size, as a founder or a leader of a company. I would say that most people set it around $100, and then they'll leave the maximum investment uncapped. On our end, we make sure to do all the KYC AML for investors. So we're making sure that they're investing compliant amounts. But if someone wanted to come in and put $100,000 check in through the platform, they totally could. But I would say that oftentimes these campaigns are made up of a lot of investors putting in a smaller amount. So, average investment size, I want to say, is around $450, $500. But the good thing about it is that our product has really been shaped to make sure that no matter how many investors you have, it is as useful as an experience as possible. So, for example, all the investors come up as a single line item on the cap table and consolidation. For the most part, we're usually using a safe note, just to make sure that it's very flexible and founder friendly, and the ball's really in their court in terms of when they want to convert those investors into equity holders. But yeah, so it really allows for you to bring in an investor base that you maybe didn't know you had. I think that oftentimes CPG or consumer facing companies do like to turn towards Reg CF because they're really able to make that connection with their consumer without necessarily having to put up those boundaries of a minimum check size, that maybe is only fit for accredited investors.
A lot of investors don't like safes.
Yeah, honestly, that is a good point. I think that on our end, our investor base, we've done a pretty good job to educate them around, what our crowd safe is and what it means for them. And I think that, a lot of the times it's more so the opportunity that they're excited about. So historically, Republic's always run on safes. There has been, different campaigns that have done equity sales or token IPAs, different things like that. We also do have an arm that can execute revenue share agreements as well. But, I would say for the most part, investors are pretty used to investing via safe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Haley Robinson, welcome. Did you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what you're working on.
Hi, nice to meet you all. I I work at New Lab. New Lab is a innovation hub that's based out of Brooklyn. And I run our membership product. We have over 250 entrepreneurs who are working in deep tech. And then we also have an investment wing and a venture spin out studio. So yeah, excited to hear more, and thanks for throwing this event.
So Republic goes to demo. Do you all have demo days as well at New Lab? I know New Lab's been around for a while.
We don't have demo days, but I think it would be something interesting in the future. We do an SPV, and so sometimes whenever one of our companies is raising, we'll have them do like a closed session pitch for our investor network.
Oh, because Republic looks at accelerators as well. We were just talking about it.
Yeah, we've spoken to Republic in the past. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe a few of our companies have raised through Republic and have had an amazing experience.
So do you have any questions for Caitlin? You don't have to, just wondering.
Oh, I feel bad because I came in late.
Oh, don't worry about it. We don't look at the clock. Everybody's welcome whenever they have time to show up.
Yeah, I guess I'm interested in Caitlin, are you involved in the scouting of new companies? Are there any strategies that Republic uses that you're excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was just chatting about the two-sided funnel that we do have. I think that with Republic's brand, a lot of companies do recognize and come towards us through our online application or just introductions through partners. But, I would say that we do scout on our end, largely looking at accelerators to identify up and coming startups. But also at the same time, too, something that I haven't touched on yet with the group, which is pretty cool, is that we do have a venture partner program. I want to say twice a year, we have a cohort of venture partners that come through. Of course, we have programming around it. And I think largely it's around community building in this space. But we have a lot of really amazing venture capitalists, people who work at accelerators, and just people who are just touching the startup ecosystem in general. And oftentimes we do get a lot of really amazing referrals there. It's great because on our end, we always have advocates for Republic within the room because they're pretty well vetted on what we do and also just what we're looking for in companies. But for example, I was out in Austin for South by Southwest, and of course, everyone's mentioning where they work, and it seems like every room I went into, I was meeting a new venture partner, maybe a founder who's raised on our platform, which has been pretty cool. But I would say that is definitely a pretty an exciting part about our business as well. But we also did just recently expand our new business team. We brought on John Vasquez. He, has worked at crowdfunding platforms in the past and has hugely scaled their, sales and new business teams before. And so there's a lot of new strategy coming out around there. And yeah, I'd say that there's more to come on that as well in the coming months.
Amazing. Yeah, I've seen your venture partner program. It's I love the concept and glad to hear it's still going strong.
Yeah.
So,
And you can't.
I have a question. So my company did a Reg CF campaign not too long ago, and I don't think it did very well. Could you explain what the reasons are for failure or success of that kind of a campaign?
Did you use Republic? I'm just curious.
No, it was a small firm in New York. I'm not sure. I don't know them very well.
Yeah, I think Reg CF, it really is about having an audience. It's a very, very momentum driven thing to do. So I would say, of course, it kind of matters what platform you're going to launch on. There are a few different ones in this space. If they're able to expose you in front of their audience, that's always really helpful. But even in that case, I would say that being able to identify a audience that you want to go out in front of beforehand is also really huge. So say if you're a company and you have a large personal network, or you have a large customer base, or even just people generally, that are on your emailing list, it's always good to have some of those people identified beforehand, just so that there's going to be more visibility and more eyes there. Some companies do like to enlist the help of marketing agencies to help, further their visibility as well. And then I always will say that, as the Reg CF campaign begins, It is very helpful if a company has, quite a bit of traction at the beginning, because if an investor hasn't heard of a company before, oftentimes they're hesitant to be the first money in, and they want to see that other people are really bought into the idea as well. So, on different platforms, there are requirements in terms of how much capital a company must drive initially. So like, for example, if a company was to run on Republic, we do ask that they help drive the initial $50,000 of investment volume from their own network. And then from that point, we graduate them onto our homepage, we kick off our marketing mechanisms and start exposing the company in front of our investor base. So that is, a little bit of an amount at the beginning. But, the way that I've seen companies do it in the past is maybe gather together some angel investors, have them put, some sizable checks in, but of course, maybe smaller than your minimum check size that you would be looking for privately. So like $5,000 to $10,000. And having that initial momentum will cause other people to look and say, hey, this company's raised in size quite quickly in terms of the volume in their campaign. Maybe I should take a look, even if I haven't heard of the name before or been familiar with their business. So I do think that, oftentimes people will be lured towards crowdfunding because of the visibility, but it's always very important to consider.
All right, you'll send me the
audience
link
reach
then
that
for
you
the
do
training,
have.
and or however that works.
Okay, thank you.
And Jessica, thank you.
Yeah, Jessica, I think you need to mute.
Well, you can mute her.
Christine, you can mute her. Yeah.
But yeah, so just, identifying an audience and then also knowing that there is some outreach that comes in behind it. I wouldn't say that a Reg CF campaign is easy work, but I do think that there are a lot of great benefits that can come about from it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have two questions. Caitlin, one is, can you explain the fee structure that you guys work under? And then the other is, does your firm invest in the programs on the platform?
Yeah, definitely. So our fee structure almost bakes that in a little way. So we definitely do like to hold some sort of security in terms of our portfolio companies. So for the most part, Republic takes success-based fees. So it's withheld off the back end of a campaign. Exactly what that is 6% in cash and then 2% in the form of securities issued. And so that's really how we're able to have a piece of each of our portfolio company. And I think that, the way that we wanted to structure this was to really make sure that our investor base knows that we are incentivized to choose the best companies that go out there. We aren't a pure marketplace play. And we do really care about the curation of companies on the platform. So, taking 25% of our, commission in securities is the way that we align ourselves. There are a few other costs that are associated with the campaign just from third parties that you do have to take on. For example, for Reg CF, you usually have a financials component. So, a company will either get a financial review if they want to raise up to $1 million, or if they want to raise past $1 million and up to that total cap of $5 million, they would get a financial audit done. We are more than happy to connect companies to CPAs within our network, and we do usually negotiate some pretty great rates with them, but they would be engaging with them as a third party. And then additionally, you work with an attorney to prep and file a Form C. The Form C is the disclosure that is required by the SEC around Reg CF raises. So again, you'd be engaging them as a third party, but we have a lot of really amazing partners within our network, and they are all cranking out Reg CF related deals, on a consistent basis. So I'd say that they're pretty quick and able to do their process very efficiently.
Awesome. Well, why don't we have Bonnie just stepped away? Jessica, are you available to introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm back. I just wanted to get something to eat. Since it is a breakfast after all. Jessica, I was wondering if you want to introduce yourself. I think she might be multitasking too. So you asked your two questions, right, Joseph? Yes.
Yep. And she answered them. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, just want to get something to eat. Jessica, I guess she's busy. Tommy, I don't know if you're still multitasking and you are muted, but did you want to introduce yourself? I guess not. So, question. Go ahead, Ian.
Oh, Caitlin, I would just like to get your comments on current trends, investment in general, and crypto in particular.
Yeah, no, that's That's a good question. I would say on the startup side of things, I definitely do think that early stage startups are quite resilient. I think that when you are an investor considering investing in early stage startups at this time and within this macro content, I would say that, these types of investments are quite resilient just because of the longer time frame that they have. When you're investing into a company on our platform, we're often saying that you should consider a 5 to 10 year exit period on that investment. So I do think that considering economic cycles, if a company is able to sustain itself throughout, it's a longer term investment that does kind of give you a little bit of cushion there. And I would say that just generally in terms of the companies that we've been working with and seeing, oftentimes companies are privately fundraising at the same time that they're doing a Reg CF campaign. So the one main thing that I'm noticing is pricing differences. So valuations have been changing quite a bit, but I think that it is almost better for investors because instead of having, an inflationary valuation environment, it really is kind of getting back to more reasonable prices. And I think that it does kind of create opportunity there. In terms of investment volume on the platform, we've been growing pretty consistently ever since we started out. So Republic as a platform began 6 years ago. And I would say because we have been consistently growing, we haven't seen too much of a slowdown with investment volume. In terms of the crypto arm that we have, it's not necessarily a crypto investing arm. A lot of the times they're acting as a consultant for crypto clients. They've always been pretty choosy just because it's a limited team and they do have limited bandwidth. So I think that, maybe their funnel has shrunk a little bit, but at the same time, the amount of clients that they're working with has stayed the same because they've always had to have a little bit of a tighter decision-making process when it comes with what companies to work with. So I do think that there's still companies, looking to create tokens and, fundraise through that way. But yeah, those are my thoughts there.
So things are fairly steady.
Yeah, I would say fairly steady. Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Oh, I saw the Tommy, did you want to introduce yourself? And then Jessica, we'd like you to introduce yourself too, if you'd like to. Oh, Tommy, we can't hear you. There's something wrong with your volume, with your audio. Oh. Oh, you're muted at the moment, but if you're having problems with the audio, oh, there we go.
Okay.
Oh, we can hear you now, Tommy.
Oh, you can? Oh, great.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, the mic was a little sticky this morning, so I guess it reset itself. I was saying, hi, Bonnie, hi, Caitlin, and hello, everyone. My name is Tommy Jenkins, and I have had a number of roles in startup for quite a while. I started out at a small investment firm looking at public and private equity. I moved on to a lot of women's entrepreneur work in the community and just fell in love with startup, ran a few startups, and moved into data science. I love ML, I love NLP, and I'm working on a startup in the dating app space right now, as well as some other ML focused products.
Thank you. Did you have a question? I mean, you're welcome to ask one since.
Oh, yeah, sure. But did somebody want to introduce themselves? I think Jessica, you were saying.
Oh, Jessica, did you want to introduce yourself? Oh, there you go.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm so
Yes.
sorry. I think I came in on the call without my mute and I apologize. My name is Jessie. I am the owner and visionary of Jessie's Jamboree. I started a business teaching imagination yoga and mindfulness to children and their caregivers in my community. And I have big vision, big goal to just start my own community in that sense. and reach out to the school systems and create like a whole kind of big brother, big sister program in my community. So I have a lot of goals. I need some funding. So I'm happy to be here and hearing all of the words and the tips that are shared here. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. So you're going to consider crowdfunding at some point?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to consider crowdfunding at some point?
Maybe once I learn what crowdfunding means, yes. Very, very new at this. Very new at this.
Okay. Well, welcome and happy to, and we always record these too, so you could always go back and listen to what you might have missed at the beginning. So Tommy, you had a question. Oh, you're muted again, Tommy. Oh, Tommy, did you have a question? Yes.
Yeah, so sorry. I came in a little late. I apologize. So I'm sure you probably addressed the current market, Caitlin. Maybe Bonnie or Caitlin, you can fill me in. So I guess a more specific question regarding the current market might be with regard to a startup producing revenue, producing traction. Is that more important these days? If it is more important, either because it's easier to self-create software these days, or because of the market, how do you feel that affects like the evaluation of the founding team? Are you seeing any changes in sort of your requirements with regard to the operational team and their strengths, or are those numbers really replacing that sort of intuition about the founders a little bit more now? So how does that dynamic change?
Yeah, so when it comes to our diligence process, we definitely don't dive as deep as maybe a VC fund does. I think that ultimately we aren't the ones making an investment. But of course, we want to make sure that we are putting good investment opportunities in front of our investor base. I think there has more so been a little bit of a closer look just regarding runway, a company's burn, and how they've been operating. Of course, knowing that a company has been able to secure funding and will be able to sustain itself is very important to us. I wouldn't necessarily say that we zoom in so much as of now on the team and really focus on that. It's definitely something that we've always looked at as a baseline, but oftentimes we leave it up to the investors to use their own intuition there. I would say that is something that investors on our platform do consider when investing into companies. But yeah, I would say mainly, just looking at financial health during these times, and then also staying realistic, like with valuations there. As I was saying previously, most companies that are raising through Reg CF are oftentimes raising privately on the side as well. So we've just seen that, if a company is bringing in an institutional investor, over the past few weeks and maybe month, the institutional investor will ask for them to reprice, and that kind of creates a ripple effect for us as well. But for the most part, just to kind of go into valuation there as well, companies are usually bringing forward a valuation themselves when they go onto a platform. So we don't assign valuations to companies. We just screen and then approve. Of course, if we feel like it might need to be changed to be a little bit more marketable or fair to investors, we definitely make a note of it, and it's a conversation behind that. But for the most part, as companies go through our diligence process, they're able to self-declare the valuation that they'd like to raise at.
Awesome. And so the evaluation process is pretty hands-on at times?
Honestly, I would say that, our diligence team usually does, a pretty quick screen and then also presents in front of our investment committee. So we look for current financials, and then just a quick questionnaire from the company as well to understand, the general concepts about the company. But otherwise, when a company goes onto our platform, they have a campaign page that's built out as well. So investors are expected to read through. It's pretty high level. I would say you don't necessarily have to get into the nitty gritty of numbers, but it definitely does reflect, say, revenue traction, where a company sees itself moving forward, projections, things like that. But I want to say it's about a 10-15 minute read for investors, and that's what they would be seeing, and then decide whether or not they want to invest into that company.
Awesome. And so most of these companies are, they have revenue, right?
Yeah, for the most part, I would say that revenue is a benchmark that we do usually look for. I think the other two buckets that might trump that, say if it's a very notable founder, so they've had previous exits, or of course have a really big network, say maybe if it's a podcast host who has a large audience and is looking to start a new venture there. And then, another one is if a company has been backed by a notable VC. I think that we find that these two buckets are very motivational for our investors as well. Of course, investors feel comfort in investing alongside a name brand VC. And then, of course, if someone has a big community, then they're oftentimes able to get the recognition from investors and have that trust that way too. So those are the two areas that I would say that would allow for a company that maybe hasn't gone to market to raise on the platform. But for the most part, I will say majority of the companies on our platform have gone to market, are producing some sort of traction, whether it be like user traction or revenue traction. And we have benchmarks that we kind of use to assess, whether or not we think it's the right time for a company to be using our platform.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Caitlin, another question for you. Could you talk a little bit about the success of some of the companies that have gone through the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that just to give you some statistics, our average campaign size is $500,000, and then our median campaign size is $350,000. Now the Reg CF cap was historically $1,070,000 that companies could raise each year. And then last year, I want to say in March or April, that cap was raised to 5 million. That was a really, really amazing time for the crowdfunding industry in general, I would say, because a lot of later stage companies, maybe that we wouldn't necessarily have the chance to incentivize to come raise on a platform because the dollar amount that they could raise was much lower, started coming towards the platform as well. So, I'd say Series A stage plus companies have raised, and I think Republic specifically has really had some, industry history setting raises, and also just industry favorite raises, I would say. So on the day that the Reg CF cap went live, we had a company called Gumroad raise on our platform, and they were the first company to raise $5 million. And I want to say they did so in about 19 hours. Since then, yeah, we've had a few, really amazing high quality companies, well-known brand name VCs invested, and large communities behind them raised on our platform. And again, have been able to break records and, maybe get a campaign invested into within a matter of hours, and really hitting those $1 million amounts. So I think it kind of depends. I would say that if there are, those favorites of Silicon Valley and they do want to engage their customer base, they're always able to come onto the platform, and we do have the ability to execute these very quick raises for them so they can engage their community that they have further. But also at the same time too, we are working with a large array of companies. So we do still have those seed stage companies that are coming on the platform and raising $400,000, $700,000, or $700,000 and $1 million. And I think, kind of looping back to the very beginning of what I was saying, there are those two different disclosure requirements that the SEC has. So if you raise up to $1 million, it's the financial review you need. If you raise past $1 million, you need the financial audit. The way that I've been seeing it, because investment volume is always going to be variable, and you don't know exactly how much our audience might be driving or how much investment volume, a company's audience might be driving. I'm still seeing majority of companies going out there with $1,070,000 cap and kind of just seeing what falls within. But, there is a company that comes across, every so often, that knows for a fact, I have a community that's going to want to invest, over $1 million. And so they'll kick off with the financial audit and just get going on that right away.
$5 million in 19 hours. That's got to be a pretty good record.
Yeah. So Gumroad
Amazing.
that was Gumroad, and then Customer.io also did a stellar raise. And just to put in perspective the size of these companies, Gumroad raised, a follow-on for their Series A at $100 million valuation. Customer IO also raised $5 million through our platform. And they had a $400 million valuation. So, I think that the size of companies that we see coming towards crowdfunding is definitely raising. And, there is opportunity to grab, more incentivizing sizes in terms of investment when it comes to our platform. One more thing I will add in there too, we do have a broker dealer that is a part of Republic as well. So the capability to run Reg D campaigns. This has been pretty unique because we have had companies start to raise side-by-side campaigns. So obviously on our end, we've identified which people in our investor base are accredited investors. And then of course, in a company's community, they're going to have some accredited investors as well. When a company runs a side-by-side Reg CF and Reg D campaign, they have that $5 million limit through Reg CF, but the Reg D limit is uncapped. So we will take any accredited investors who invest into the company and side pot them into the Reg D. So the Reg CF can truly be left for non-accredited investors. And through this, method of doing a Reg CF and a Reg D, it allows for you to raise 5 million plus, and we've had a handful of companies actually do that, maybe raise 500,000 through a Reg D or raise $1 million through a Reg D, and then also raise that full 5 million through Reg CF.
So the example you gave of the 5 million 19 hours, all consumer generated, non-accredited investors?
No, so they didn't do a side-by-side campaign actually. Side-by-side, something that we've put into practice, I would say, within the past few months. Companies have done a Reg CF and maybe a few months later done a follow-on Reg D. But for that campaign, it was split between accredited and non-accredited investors because theoretically, anyone can invest into a Reg CF campaign. And, anyone unless you leave it capped, in terms of how much people can invest, which I've seen some companies do before. Say, like if a company knows they have a really wide audience, maybe like 1 million customers within their company, sometimes I'll see companies set the limit that a person can invest at $500 just to make sure that really everyone can get a slice of the pie there. But, I believe that Gumroad was uncapped in terms of how much someone could invest. So I'm sure that there were quite a few accredited investors who were put together in that limit.
I have a sort of related question. It may seem a little out of the box, but so is there a lowest amount that,
Yeah, so it's actually set by companies. And I would say that the average minimum investment size that companies are setting is at $100. I've seen some campaigns at as low as 50. It kind of just depends on who your audience is and kind of who you're targeting there.
Right. And so is there an ability to, which there may not be because you encourage proper planning, but is there ability to, if something is moving very fast, to sort of pause or review? Would the company have sort of a decision-making ability over who they accept as investing? Can they change it, or would you just, beforehand sort of make sure you allot some of the investment to specific types of investors, et cetera?
Yeah, so Reg CF campaigns do need to be publicly accessible, but there are definitely mechanisms that we have in place to allow for companies to give first access, to their community specifically before opening it up to the broader community of Republic and beyond. So, for example, companies can put up reservation pages. It's pretty quick to get a reservations page up. You can do that within a week or two without necessarily taking the compliance and documentation steps that you need to have it be investable. And so that way, some companies put up reservations campaigns while they're getting the financial review done and while they're working on the Form C to just gather interest from their network. As soon as the campaign launches, they can convert on that investment. So reservations page is one way. And then also, we don't need to display a company on our homepage until they let us know. So although you could probably click through the Republic website and find the company, it won't be displayed on our homepage until either a company hits $50,000 of investment volume, or B, a company kind of lets us know that, hey, we want to put it out there. So say if you had $1 million campaign and wanted to wait until the first $500,000 was invested before opening it up to the Republic network and really putting it on the homepage for all of that visibility to come in. You know, you could keep it in that more private mode, but somewhere that link needs to be publicly accessible. It's just a few click-throughs on our website, but we find for the most part, most of our investors stay within the homepage and are really looking at that when it comes to companies that they're discovering.
Awesome. This is so great. So Bonnie, Caitlin, so I haven't really looked at this well before, so I just think this is so great. So yeah.
Since investors in general seem to be taking longer to write the checks these days, have you seen an uptick in the number of early stage or companies that are coming to the Republic platform? I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that whenever I talk to founders, it's always interesting to see around timing, because I think that a lot of the times if a company's fundraising and they've just announced, you know, I'll often loop in and just let them know that the option's there and initiate conversations. I will say that, you know, sometimes they're like, hey, I want to suss up my round a little bit more, you know, see what might come in over the next few weeks. And of course, that'll lead. I think that's always pretty important for a founder to understand the valuation that they would be going, you know, to the rest of the crowd with. So, you know, oftentimes I initiate conversations and do wait a few weeks and kind of just see how the fundraising has laid out. I wouldn't say that things have changed too much, but I would say that there has been a great openness to crowdfunding in terms of companies that I've spoken with before and maybe reached back out to or have them look back to me. So nothing drastic, but I definitely have noticed some good signals for our business at least. Yeah.
Because I was reading an article this morning where the tech stocks are expected to still drop lower and lower, which I think it was overdue. So I was wondering how it affected you guys and how it might affect you in future, since I'm sure that the funds are going to be a little, again, take longer before writing the checks, a little more due diligence.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm also wondering if you've seen an uptick in the number of investors since you do due diligence, and since you, in a way, pre-vet, and with other investors coming in, it is pre-vetted for investors to some extent.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say to sign up on the Republic platform is pretty easy. You know, everyone on this call could literally do so in 3 minutes. I think that there's always going to be a base amount that someone can invest if they're not disclosing any information. I want to say that number is around 2,200 per year. Once you start disclosing more about yourself, such as your net worth, your salary, and then also if you want to do accreditation status, you know, you're able to invest increasingly larger amounts per year. So I would say in terms of our investor base, it's always growing. And I think it's cool because we have a pretty sweet flywheel. You know, every company that raises on our platform brings in a community of their own, and all of those people sign up to become members on our platform. Additionally, we have our base community and also the community that just grows alongside with our brand. We do find that there is a lot of follow-on investment. So say, for example, you know, Joe came to the platform because of X campaign and he invests into it. You know, oftentimes, you know, he's getting the marketing emails that we send out, or he's just browsing the platform in general. And we've seen that on average, a person will invest 2+ times. So this means that, you know, if a company was bringing an investor onto Republic because they're incentivizing them to raise and invest into their campaign, oftentimes that person is still hopping and looking at other companies and investing into other campaigns as well. So I think that as long as we have companies raising on our platform, there's always going to be community members of them joining our investor base. And we've seen a pretty great retention in them, you know, following on and investing in other companies as well.
I wanted to ask, this all seems very US centric. Is that accurate?
Yes. So Reg CF is a security exemption, is US based. You know, I think that there's always going to have to be an entity in the US as our personal stance. Republic cares a lot about compliance and just making sure that everything is running smoothly and really strong in that way. So we do require for companies to have their holding companies based in the US as well, just because we think that it makes the most sense for our investor base. So very US centric in that way. We have hosted campaigns for companies that operate internationally but have their holdings in the US. So that doesn't close the door on that opportunity. And then, of course, as you know, through Reg D, there is no limitation in terms of where a company can be based out of. So that's that. But furthermore, Republic specifically as a company, we have been expanding internationally. We have opened up an office in Asia based out of Korea right now. I think that's more focused on the private capital side. So focusing on accredited high net worth individuals out in Asia. But something that's been really, really exciting that came about within the last few months as well is that we acquired a UK-based crowdfunding platform called Seedrs. So that also does expand our reach into the UK and the EU there. So it's pretty cool because on my end, when I first started, we chat to a company and maybe there'd be certain things barring them from being able to raise on the platform, but through the products that we've really been like releasing and working out, it's more so a company will come forward and then we're able to say, okay, this avenue makes the best sense for you. We think you should do a Reg D, and then maybe chat to our friends over at Seedrs, and really like kind of diagnose like what the best way for them to fundraise would be. So there's a lot less instances of where we have to turn down companies because we might not be able to raise with them because we do have all these different avenues that we could send them down.
You mentioned high net worth investors in Asia. Do you also work with family offices in North America?
I want to say that we do. I'm not too sure because that's on the Republic Capital side of things, and that is their own team. But I want to say that yes, they also do work with family offices.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So next question. That Trip always has a question. I'm surprised. Oh, you're muted right now. Oh, no, not today.
His voice is sore.
Oh, Trip, you could put it into the chat and we'll read it for you if you need to do that. If you're hoarse today, we're happy to help you out. Because I know he always has questions.
Well, if nobody else has one, I have another.
Oh, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, so I'm going to with my boss. I'm going to an investment conference next week, and given an app naturally, and asked to try to make appointments with different investors. I think they're mostly family office, but I mean, do you have any tips on how to, if you have like a large set of investors to look at, how do you determine which ones are the ones you want to speak to?
Yeah, I would say it's really important to identify an investor's thesis. I think that a lot of the times companies can spend their energy chasing after the wrong investor. And so understanding, if someone's maybe tech focused or looking at the stage of your company and kind of thinking about if you would fit into their portfolio, if it kind of matches up with historical investments that they've done in the past and things like that. I think that fundraising obviously could be like a very time consuming and exhausting task. And so really being able to hone in your focus before you go out there is pretty important.
Oh, thank you. Next question. If anybody has one. Zarin?
Well, you mentioned tokens, and in the token world, there's this. I'm not an expert, but there's these leaders, and they have like a lot of people also under them. Like they can bring on a lot of investors, and they can generate very big amounts of money in short time.
Yeah,
but it's a bit of like these multi-layered marketing, or kind of ideas. Do you on the tokenization side, do you work with like with affiliate networks or not?
we don't actually work with affiliate networks. I would say that oftentimes it's our clients that really bring the large community that they have behind them for these types of raises. And that's also something that our team does consider when choosing what clients to work with. I think it'll be pretty interesting. I don't know if any of y'all checked out the Republic website prior, but I just popped in the chat one of our token raises that we did. So it was for Chingari. which is a creator app out in India. So already they have so many they have so many users. I think it says they have 3.5 million daily active users. So when they drop their token, they were able to raise a lot of that quite quickly. So I'd say that, kind of in terms of the types of tokenization and creations that our team is doing, we're usually looking for companies to already have a community that they want to engage, and then they're able to help them out with all the steps that go into that.
Okay, thank you.
I think Trip put a question into the chat as well. He said,
Okay.
are there any new markets that you see coming on into crowdfunding moving forward?
Yeah, you've certainly
Honestly-
expanded. I'm curious. Thank you, Trip, for that question. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Caitlin. I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt.
no, you're good. Go. Honestly, I think that the new types of markets that are coming into crowdfunding aren't necessarily because it's something that I'll restart on that. I think the new markets that are coming into crowdfunding are really based off of people exploring the security exemption and kind of understanding its limits. The way we like to say it, because it is a newer security exemption, is, if it hasn't been done before, we're always, excited to figure out a way to do so and how, and do it from there. And I think that whenever there's a first kind of a raise, there is always going to be like a new precedent that is set, and then other companies will look and say, hey, well, they did it, so why can't I try to do that too? And so crowdfunding is very much so in the infant stage, where a lot of it is set by example. I think one that I have noticed personally, and I think that Republic also is starting to explore a little bit more, is alternative assets, and then also just like media, film, experiences, things like that. We've had a few film deals raised on our platform. There's also been chats about, you could possibly fund a Broadway show through crowdfunding. So really anything that you can think of that has been traditionally financed, you could open up the opportunity towards non-accredited investors. I think it just really depends on how comfortable retail investors would be to come on to these types of fundraisers. But again, I think that any community driven project that could be funded can always be a great fit for crowdfunding. Because, for example, say if a Broadway show was to raise capital through crowdfunding, and maybe they did like a revenue share on that, or they could also raise via SAFE, maybe if they're looking for a later exit. If you have 1,000 investors through crowdfunding, there's often times that a large fraction of those people will be customers, and they'll want to go see the Broadway show, that they're going to tell their friends about it, and really create this word of mouth effect. So I think that like any business that does touch a large audience, whether it's scalable and you're looking for an exit, maybe you could raise via SAFE, or maybe if it's very revenue generative, again, you could use a revenue share agreement there. I think that everyone's looking and finding new use cases through Reg CF. It's just really the first person who executes it, and then setting a precedent for people down the road.
While we're on the subject or the topic, I'm wondering if you're looking at NFTs at all, especially in music. I've been reading about artists who just raised incredible amounts of money through NFTs, and I'm wondering if you're looking at that space at all. I'm sure you are.
Yeah, so Republic actually has done one music launch thus far, and it was distributed with an NFT. So pretty much, just for the example, we raised funds for a song by Lil Pump. He's, I would say probably a Gen Z rapper. And that sold up pretty quickly. He had a lot of fans that were able to come in, and then each person who invested was distributed a security NFT token that we actually created. Now, this NFT allowed for the investor to have a right to the royalties into that song. So we partnered with a company called Opulus that distributes royalties, and through the ownership of this NFT, that's how Opulus would tell how much of the royalty portion they would get. These investors were able to, we're able to, and will continue to be able to see revenue from that song come through. So there's been some pretty interesting use cases there. I think also it's interesting because NFTs is very Web3, and I think in some way Republic is still kind of like Web2, Web 2.5. So we are a little bit at odds with each other, but at the same time, we always do like to support Web3 companies. And I will say that, Republic has been built within the security exemptions that the SEC has created. So they're very foolproof. And I think there is no question around the legality in terms of like the offerings that we put out there. With Web3, oftentimes that's a little bit different, where they're kind of operating in this blank space. So, we feel very sound with our business and where we are, and we love to see the different ways that we're able to incorporate Web3 aspects while also really keeping that sound infrastructure that fits well within the SEC guidelines and regulations.
Well, since we're on the topic, what else are you looking at in terms of Web3? Or what are you exploring or keeping an eye on at least?
Yeah. I think there are quite a few startups that are still traditionally fundraising, but work within the Web3 space, whether they offer a product for Web3 or just people within those communities. We are very excited about those companies that come through because we do think that they have a lot of service and growth potential. And so I'd say that still, companies maybe that service the Web3 space but are still traditionally financing are ones that we're very excited about and always looking for allocation into.
I'm curious if they're product or infrastructure, since there seems to be a heavy focus on Web3 infrastructure among investors, at least.
I would say for the most part product, but definitely, open to looking at infrastructures as well.
There was a very successful fundraise for Realm Metaverse, apparently.
Yeah.
So, can you say much about that?
Yeah, I definitely can. So actually it's really cool. So Every Realm spun out of Republic. They were with us for quite a while. Janine, the CEO, had been at Republic and was very focused on the metaverse. So they had been building out different plots of land within the metaverse, things like that. And it had been a very exciting and successful part of the business, but they decided to spin out. So they spun it in their own company. Before they did so, though, they raised a metaverse fund. So they raised $75 million from investors all across the board, accredited, non-accredited, part of the Republic network, outside of the Republic network. And those funds are specifically going into a portfolio that will hold different assets within all of the top metaverses. So if you look at the offering, you're kind of able to see the chart of what the main metaverses they're focusing are on in. And then so all of the funds from that go into an entity that holds the assets within that, and it kind of has a portfolio. I'm not too sure in terms of like the specific details and like exit time and turnaround time they're looking for that portfolio, but that was one really, really amazing raise. I think it really showed us how interested people are in the metaverse, and it really helped us identify those crypto forward investors that we have and Web3 forward investors that we have, because they were able to raise such a large amount of money in a short time. So we definitely see the demand there, and I do think that it plays into how we look at companies and how we want our pipeline to be looking moving into the future. But like I said, Janine and Every Realm spun out a Republic, I want to say again a few months ago probably. I want to say that they also had their fundraise led by Andreessen Horowitz as well. And that's a very, very exciting company too to check out. So they are always part of the Republic family, but they are now operating on their own.
Interesting. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, our company, we use metaverse in our marketing. I'm not sure if it's really necessarily appropriate because, we teach the VR platform. That's the first aspect of it. But it's kind of early days, although we just had a pretty notable sale in Beijing, as it happens.
Very cool.
So, but, I don't know if it makes sense for us to be pitching ourselves as a kind of a metaverse project or not. It almost seems like a buzzword to me to use that.
I would say though that some people are reactive to that. I think, maybe not using that as your single brand, but like having that within like your overall branding can be important, because I would say that it is quite attractive to investors at the moment, just to be a part of the movement and kind of have at least a quarter of their portfolio dedicated towards that. I think that what I understand from our investor base is that diversifying is something that they find to be pretty powerful. And, you know, a platform like Republic, because it has offerings that go across so many different verticals, you know, being able to diversify their portfolio is something that they like to do.
Good.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I would think so. So are there any more questions? Anything anybody would like to ask or add? I guess not. So Caitlin, Tommy, do you have another question?
No, that's great. Super interesting. Great.
So Caitlin, any parting advice or comments?
Honestly, I would say, I think Reg CF has been a really interesting industry for me to enter into. I think it's only going to become more important as time goes on. I think that companies are really starting to look at alternative ways to finance, and crowdfunding fits in pretty nicely, where you're able to see the benefit of not only raising capital, but then also being able to connect with your community further and grab different types of benefits. You know, we never like to consider ourselves an alternative to institutional capital, but rather an additive. And I think that people are really starting to see that synergy that crowdfunding can offer them. So, you know, I would say if there's anything more that you have in terms of questions regarding Reg CF, you know, I'm always an open contact. Always happy to chat about companies, you know, maybe that you know, but also just about the industry in general. I think that everyone's pretty open just because a lot of people are in discovery mode around this, and we understand that our most important job here is education, because Reg CF, you know, is a field that maybe not so many people know about. So feel free to check me out on LinkedIn. My email is caitlin@republic.co. I can send that through in the chat. But yeah, no, I think that when it comes to Reg CF, you know, no question is a stupid question, just because, you know, sometimes it's hard to go through SEC documents and get an understanding exactly what the regulation is. So always happy to educate and share more information on what we do at Republic.
Yeah, I had one question.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mentioned before that we'd already done a Reg CF campaign. Have you had companies that tried it at one company or one platform and went to another platform and had success after that?
Absolutely. I don't think it's rare. There are a few players within the space. And so whether that, you know, be a company raising on our platform, maybe checking out a different audience, or oftentimes raising on another platform and then coming to the Republic platform, you know, each platform is always going to have a unique audience. Obviously, there's going to be some fanatics who have multiple accounts across different crowdfunding platforms. But yeah, I mean, I think that you know, a company can grow and come back to Reg CF after they already raised. You know, on the Republic platform specifically, I want to say we have about a dozen companies that have raised second campaigns. And then we do have 2 or 3 companies that have actually come back and raised a third campaign on the platform as well. So, you know, ultimately, I would really just say, like, Reg CF is malleable. It's customizable to what you may need, and you are able to use it, you know, maybe in the same year or year after year, because that limit of $5 million resets after 365 days. So even if you raise, say, $1 million on one platform within the year, and 5 months later you want to do another $1 million round, you can, because it stays within the limits. It's really just making sure that you're staying within the SEC limits there.
Got it. Great.
Mm-hmm.
So Elias, I know you got here late, but I do want to give you the chance to introduce yourself. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Oh, I guess he's not able to. So anything else, or? And yes, I know companies who raised on Republic successfully on Republic more than once, you know, so yes, I know that that's absolutely true, and thank you, which is why we're always happy to have you all back. So anything you'd like to add, Caitlin, or any last comments?
No, honestly, I think if there's, go ahead, Bonnie.
I was going to say, any words of encouragement for the entrepreneurs or
Yeah,
investors?
definitely.
Yes.
I would say for investors, there's so many, you know, venture partner programs out there. that can be really great to build up your Rolodex of connections within the space. So I think that, whether it be a partner or being a scout for a different firm, it's always cool. And I think that you can find a lot of value there if you're looking to become more ingrained within this space. And then for founders, I think that, fundraising definitely can be exhausting. I talk to founders on a daily basis, and I can always hear back from their experiences, although I don't have to go through it myself. I think, definitely hone in your focus, and then also just be educated in terms of like the different options that lay out there. There are a lot of resources and people who are willing to give and help in that space. So, I think identifying what you need and what you're most hoping for from an investor, whether that be someone who can come on in more of an advisor capacity and give advice there, maybe someone who has important connections that you can really tap into, but then also just maybe, ways to tap in your community as well. So I think crowdfunding is always an option that I encourage founders to consider. But yeah, I'd just say really knowing the different options that lay out there, and then kind of deciding in your own mind of what you want to go after, rather than just kind of like leaving it up to fate and having a widespread there. I think it's pretty important to focus your energy and make sure that you don't get exhausted in that way.
I have a question for you. Why did you decide to join the crowdfunding platform? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so I had worked with growth stage companies in the past. Usually doing, a little bit of a larger investment size than what we do now. So I think the startup space has always really interested in me. I love entrepreneurship as well. And I think that being able to have a job that is very founder facing is awesome. I am inspired every day by the founders that I get to chat to, but then also at the same time, I also do get to dig into their business model a little bit more and get an understanding of what makes them tick. For me to be able to do that for dozens and dozens of companies is really great, just because I'm able to kind of identify, what makes a good business and what makes a desirable business from the investor standpoint. So I think that, the position at Republic really attracted me because of that one-on-one time that I get with founders on a daily basis. And then also the ability to look at a very, very large volume of companies and just get exposure in that way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for all of your sage advice and encouragement. And we appreciate you joining us today. And I want to thank all of our attendees for being here as well, and for all your questions. And Christine, once again, we thank you all at Work2 for hosting us. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another investor. And thank you again, Caitlin. We really appreciate it. And give my best to Chuck as well.
I will. Thank you for having me, Bonnie. And it was very nice to meet all of you. I'm happy to be in open contact as always.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and enjoy your day.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.